Looks like the biggest, literally, monster mash in movies has found the king of its monsters. I'm DJ Wooldridge, and this is Screen Junkies News. It was announced yesterday that Adam Wingard, director of cult favorites You're Next and The Guest, and the upcoming adaptation of Death Note for Netflix, will be captaining Legendary's mega monster beatdown, Godzilla vs. Kong. Is this indie darling up for the challenge of blockbuster filmmaking? Here with me to discuss is our very own Roth Cornett.
Hello.
Hi, Roth.
You like giant monsters.
I love giant monsters. Do you also like giant monsters?
I love giant monsters. I'm not going to lie. I love giant monsters fighting each other. I love giant monsters versus giant robots. All of this is good for me.
Now, there's been some controversy in the offices. We've been talking about this. A lot of people voicing their opinions on how they don't like Godzilla and or Kong. I, however, am more of a proponent for the recent Kong movie, but I'm also a proponent for aspects of 2014's Godzilla.
You know, I feel like, and this is what I said in the Kong review, is that particularly with a character like that, when it's the title character, that's the character that you need to get right.
I like where you're going with this.
I like where I'm going with this too. We're on the same page already. I feel like they really got Kong. Well, that Kong was the best character in that movie.
Yeah.
Kong was the protagonist. You were in his POV the whole time. You were rooting for him, even when he's doing things like destroying in that amazing, and can we see the image, please? That amazing helicopter sequence, because it's so absolutely terrifying. Even when he's doing those things, you sort of understand where he's coming from. Yeah. And that's the important thing in these films.
Well, and you could say the same thing for the 2014 Godzilla, is that it got Godzilla right. I agree. If it got anything right, it got Godzilla right.
I agree. And that's been the biggest debate, I think, among Godzilla fans, because I understand the problems with that movie. I really do. Yeah. But one of the things that I felt like, and especially I remember writing my review for this, I felt like I'm really going to have to defend this and very much make my points clear. But what I felt that they did well was not somehow, but very pointedly capture the different iterations of Godzilla in one film. And that's pretty amazing, because you have so many different versions of Godzilla.
Yeah, a lot.
There's sort of the silly jumping around in the suit Godzilla. You know, you want to get into Manila. If you want to, you can. You can get very silly. And there were moments that felt very silly, but it's because they were told through the news footage, remember? And they felt, well, he was stomping through Vegas. Which
they reference in Kong as well. Yeah. A little bit of the news footage stuff. Now, so far we are cool with where these movies are going. Now these two are going to come head to head. Yeah. And the person that's in charge of that is Adam Wingard, who recently did Blair Witch, which was a kind of his first foray into franchise movies. But more importantly, he did The Guest and You're Next, which are both amazing movies.
Those are great films. If you guys haven't seen those movies, I hope that you just do it.
Yeah, get on it.
Earlier, DJ was sorry he brought up Godzilla and Kong with me, because I went down a whole rabbit hole about size and footage.
Yeah, you questioned me on the literally. Are they literally the biggest? They're figuratively literally the biggest, because they're big.
I just want to make sure.
Because they're big. They're big.
I just really want to make sure if we're saying they are literally the biggest, because I think the G is about 355 in the 2014.
So Adam is primarily known for kind of smaller indie horror movies. Even Blair Witch wasn't huge.
Yes.
This is not the first time we've had like a young guy that's done smaller stuff launched into the mega blockbuster arena. Do you think he's ready for it?
You know, that's always the question, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. This is sort of the pattern, right? Yeah. The other thing that I think that we do as pundits, reporters, entertainment lovers is often, I know my first jump is to go, maybe it'll be a horror movie, because that's what he's done, as if people can't stretch outside of the bounds of their genre. But I will say that what he brought to both those films was a great sense of tension. Yeah. And there was humor. There was humor via the characterization. There was humor in the circumstances. Yeah. And I think some of that is what we might see in this film, which would be awesome, because it should be sort of scary to see them fight.
Absolutely. It could be really amazing, because both The Guest and You're Next are this unique genre blend of where on the surface they're kind of horror movies, but The Guest especially is also an action movie. Yeah. And they're very funny. So what do you think, talking about the genre, what do you think Godzilla versus Kong will be? Do you think it'll be kind of like a mix?
I hope so. And that's the other thing that those two movies I think do very well, is that the central characters are very richly drawn.
Yeah.
Right?
And also scary.
And also very frightening. Yeah. And so that's sort of what I hope he brings to these characters, because like we're saying, what you got to get right is Kong and Godzilla.
Yes.
And so if you can do that, if you can build upon what's already been set in place for you, then I think that you will serve the movie very well.
Now, do you present or past? Do you think because Kong is 70s, right? 60s, 70s?
So, well, yeah, it's right after Vietnam.
Yeah,
it's like as Vietnam is ending.
And then
70s.
Godzilla's present day.
Yeah,
and I believe Godzilla King of Monsters is supposed to also be present day.
Well, and that's interesting because they set up King of Monsters in. Here's the question about the timeline. If you guys have read about this or have a sense about this, please do let me know, because this is a big question in my life right now. These are things that I spend time thinking about. So they set it up at the end of Kong, right?
Yeah, spoilers tag at the end of the movie.
Spoilers tag at the end of the movie. They set up King of Monsters.
Yeah.
So to me, it feels like, okay, is that going to be like another like island fight where it's somehow separate from the rest of the world, where they can still maintain this sense of secrecy?
Yeah.
Because by the time you're in 2014, it was a big shock to the world.
Yes, they clearly did. We're not ready for Godzilla to come stomping through their streets.
Yeah. So pieces of me are that feels like then it would be more in the past.
Kong versus Godzilla?
No.
The King of Monsters.
King of Monsters.
Yeah.
And then Kong versus Godzilla, why I think that might be more present day is because Kong still has to grow, as we learned.
They mention it. That big-ass gorilla is not quite big enough.
Yeah.
He's still growing.
He's still growing. Yeah. And I think he's 100 feet in Skull Island.
Yeah.
Godzilla was 355 feet. So he can be smaller than Godzilla and scrappier.
Yeah, he can climb up, starts punching him in the eye, you know? Yeah.
We got to see. I mean, what's going to happen when somebody opens up a mouth now?
Right. Do you think they'll at least homage Kong randomly getting electrical powers like he did in the Toho Kong versus Godzilla?
Yeah, I mean, like, I hope so.
I wanted to just grab power lines and like jam it in Godzilla's eye and I'll be like, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
I think, if you do it that way, I think depending on the tone of the film, if you do it in a way that feels tonally in line, power lines is a great idea.
Classic with the power lines. So what do you want to see in this movie? What do you think will bring, how the hell are Kong and Godzilla going to meet?
Right. We talked about this before because do they just go the Jurassic Park route where they try and industrialize Skull Island somehow?
Yeah.
Because how are you going to get a monkey that big on a boat? Like, you're not bringing him here.
Like it'd be difficult to do the classic King Kong. A monkey. The classic King Kong narrative where you drop him on a boat and try to make a show out of him. Because not only how do you get him on a boat, how do you contain him wherever the hell you're going in the first place?
Yeah.
I would like to imagine in this universe, Skull Island is Monster Island from the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
That they're one and the same. So maybe they could meet on Skull Island.
Yeah. So then obviously something is, if it's there, then something's going to bring Godzilla there. And I mean, he was called by the Mutos. You could see that making sense.
Yeah.
My concern with that, where I would want them to be very delicate, is that I wouldn't want it to feel too much like either Jurassic Park or Jurassic World. I'd want it to be its own distinct storyline.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where I have a question around that. But let's be honest, you and me. Can we be honest, everybody, together for a moment? What do I want to see? I want to see them fight. Let them fight. Yeah. Like, my favorite moment in Godzilla was at the end.
Yes. Absolutely. And one thing I liked about that movie, and one of the reasons I'll defend it, is I liked that they made you wait for that moment, so that when it happened, like, I was losing my mind in the theater.
Yeah. Also, can I address a logic problem there? Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of people drew umbrage with that because they said, well, it doesn't make sense that would kill the Muto because they're fed by nuclear energy. Well, I'm fed by water, but if you poured boiling water down my throat, I would die.
I agree. I agree. Do you think there will be, like in a lot of these face-off movies, they like fight and then they're like, wait, we have more in common and there's this bigger enemy. Do you think we'll get that in this?
A bigger enemy. Yes.
Like
I like
Space
that.
Godzilla?
Yes. Or at this point, do we just straight up do Mecha Godzilla?
Mecha Godzilla. I always wonder with those.
The whole internet is like, thank God the two of you are not writing this.
Yeah, right. Well, how do you explain why you could build a giant robot? Why is it in the shape of Godzilla? It's like the same thing with like mech suits, because they're cool, but like, is the human form really the most efficient robot body?
It's not the most efficient robot body at all. But with Mecha Godzilla, it's because, I don't know, like maybe it's like the idea of like, animal psychology, like if they, if you make it,
I like where this is going personally.
Maybe it's infiltrating like a T-1000, if it looks more human.
He's fighting Godzilla, and then part of the skin falls off, and it's been Mecha Godzilla the whole time. Now, traditionally, King Ghidorah, who's supposed to show up in Godzilla King of Monsters, is from space.
Yeah. So are they going to introduce that question mark? Yeah. Why not?
Have aliens show up? I'm all for it. Listen, crazier the better. Go for it. Have fun.
I think as long as, look, I mean, I think it's a tricky thing because with these films, you have to sort of, if you go all the way back, right? Yeah. If you go back to Gojira, that's a very specific kind of film, and it is this metaphor, and it is a weightier film. It's a very beautiful much so. Film.
Yeah, right? yeah. It really holds up. The original Godzilla, black and white, holds up hardcore.
Yeah, and that is very much a beautiful, weightier. It's more of a metaphor. Yeah. So can you do that? You sure can. But once you start getting into them fighting a bunch of monsters, I do think you sort of have to roll into having a good time with it. That doesn't mean that you can't tell a strong story with great characterization. That doesn't mean that there can't be some level of allegory in the film as well. But I think it is a really tricky balance, and that's why I'm excited about this director, because I do think that he can manage it probably better than anything I've pitched. Currently. Right. I'm like, can you just make them fight and stuff?
Yeah. Would you save Ghidorah for this movie? Like,
they're not going to. They're not going to, right? Because, and that's the other thing with Destroy All Monsters is like, once you open the door and those monsters are available to you, do you then pair? That's an interesting move.
There's so many, by the way. I was looking into the other day, the Toho monsters, there's so many different ones.
I'm sorry, King of Monsters. I'm thinking Destroy All Monsters because it's amazing and you should really watch it.
There's so many. There's so many for them to pick from. And there's so many different ways that they could go. Like, Kong could take some, like for Kong 2, he could fight some of the extra rollover Godzilla monsters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, I guess the final thought would be, I think for King of Monsters, then you do get into that multi-monster battle sequence. And I do think that there's something about just Kong versus Godzilla. If you make them equal adversaries, if you make a strong enough story, like a reason why they're fighting, I don't think it makes sense to do versus and then have them team up. Yeah. You
don't want like Monsters Avengers with Mothra, Rodan, Godzilla, and Kong all in a team together facing off with...
Okay, two thoughts there. I'm going to correct myself because I think it's fine if they start out as adversaries and then you're right, a larger adversary then comes in for them to fight. I'm okay with that as long as that's well told too. Absolutely, I want that. Who would not want that? And three, to be fair, it's that model took itself in terms of films from Godzilla, not the other way around. Like Godzilla was doing those team ups and mashups and all of that way before anybody else was.
Well, thank you for fanning out with me about giant monsters destroying stuff. Let us know in the comments down below. What do you think of Adam Wingard directing the movie? What monsters would you like to see? What would you like to see in Godzilla versus Kong? Let us know and let us know that in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Please click here for more internets, tweets. Tweet us at SJ News and make sure to subscribe to SJ News.